The letter was taped crookedly to my front door, flapping in the cold Ontario wind like it couldn't wait to be noticed, and the first line made my stomach drop, notice of non-compliance. I remember thinking, if this is how the story starts, you'll want to stay until the end, because even I had no idea what I was about to do next. I live in a quiet townhouse complex just outside Toronto, the kind of place where the snow gets shoveled before sunrise and everyone waves but rarely talks. After my divorce, this house became more than shelter. It was where I learned how to be alone without falling apart. I painted it a soft, calm beige when I moved in, something safe, something invisible. I wanted peace, not attention. So when the wall letter said my exterior paint was faded and inconsistent with community standards, and demanded I repaint within 30 days, it felt personal, like someone telling me I wasn't blending in well enough with my own life. I went to the HOA meeting that week, sitting on a folding chair under fluorescent lights, surrounded by neighbors who avoided eye contact. The board members spoke in polite, clipped sentences about property values and uniformity. I tried to explain that repainting would cost money I didn't really have, that I'd just gotten back on my feet after months of barely sleeping. One woman nodded sympathetically, then slid the rulebook across the table. Rules were rules. I drove home in silence, hands tight on the steering wheel, feeling small and tired and strangely angry. That night, I stood in my kitchen staring at the letter again. I thought about how carefully I'd followed every rule my whole life. I'd been a good spouse, a good employee, a good neighbor. And still, here I was, being told my home wasn't acceptable as it was. Somewhere between the kettle boiling and the snow starting to fall outside, something in me snapped open instead of shut down. If they wanted me to repaint my house, I would. Just not the way they expected. I don't know why hot pink came to mind first. Maybe because it was everything I'd never allowed myself to be. Loud, unapologetic, impossible to ignore. The next morning, I went to the hardware store, heart pounding like I was doing something illegal. The young guy mixing the paint raised his eyebrows when I asked for the brightest hot pink they had. Bold choice, he said, smiling. I smiled back, for the first time in weeks, and it felt like breathing after being underwater. Painting took 3 days. Neighbors slowed their cars to stare. One older man shook his head. A woman walking her dog laughed and gave me a thumbs up. With every stroke of the roller, I felt lighter. The pink wasn't just color on siding. It was defiance. It was grief and humor and exhaustion turning into something visible. By the time I finished, my hands were sore, my cheeks were cold, and my house looked like it had decided to live out loud. The HOA response was swift. Another letter. Another meeting. This time, the room buzzed. Some people were furious. Others looked like they were trying not to smile. The board chair cleared his throat and said the color was highly inappropriate. I listened calmly, then said something I hadn't planned but somehow needed to say. I told them this house had seen me at my lowest, that repainting it felt like reclaiming myself, and that if the rules didn't specify a color, then I had followed them exactly. Silence stretched. Finally, someone in the back clapped. Then another. Not everyone agreed, but enough people spoke up about creativity, mental health, and how dull the complex had become. The board postponed their decision. Weeks passed. The pink stayed. Spring came, and with it, something unexpected. People started talking to each other more. Kids asked if they could take pictures in front of my house. A local paper ran a small story about the pink townhouse that sparked a conversation. Eventually, the HOA updated their guidelines, allowing a wider range of colors. No apology ever came, but the letters stopped. Now, when I pull into my driveway, I don't feel invisible. The hot pink still makes me laugh sometimes, especially against a backdrop of Canadian snow or gray skies. It reminds me that rules matter, but so does the quiet bravery of choosing yourself. I didn't just repaint my house. I reminded myself, and maybe a few others, that standing out isn't always rebellion. Sometimes, it's healing.